everyone. Welcome back to Fatal Lies Part 3. I hope that you're enjoying Serena and Sloan. I invite you to come on in, relax, and enjoy.
I don't want nobody stabbing me with love. Don't wanna waste no time getting my feelings hurt. I believe in those things we don't know much of. There's just so much to see that ain't about love. I'm ready to face my fears, I'm ready to taste the weird. I just wanna walk the hills above. My ordinary life, I could let it burn. 'Cause I just wanna go to the deep end.
Sloan entered Megan's apartment to find Serena bent down on her knees, cleaning. She was wearing a blue overall with her hair tied up in pigtails. He smiled as he shut the door and walked to where she was kneeling. "Are you here for something?" Serena asked. "I was just here to see if I missed anything." Um, I called your station and they said it was okay to start moving things out. Her landlord has been calling me nonstop to get this place cleaned and moved out. It's already been re-rented. Can you believe that?" Sloan shrugged. "I'm not surprised. Looks like you could use a hand." She laughed as she stood up. I suppose so." Sloan smiled as she handed him a few garbage bags. He walked around the room, picking up the empty Chinese and pizza boxes along with the empty beer cans. Megan wasn't keen on being clean at all. He turned to find Serena washing the bodies, and the way how she moved caused a hot stirring inside his body. He swore under his breath and turned away as he continued picking up the garbage. 2 hours later, when the place was clean, washed, they were sitting on the floor sharing a pizza. He realized how much he actually liked being around her. It was terrifying territory to be walking on, but Sloan couldn't help it. "So, have you ever been married?" Serena asked as she bit through her pizza. He chewed through his and cleared his throat. "I was. Married once." "What happened?" "It didn't work out. She was a rich girl from New York, and to piss off her father, she decided to marry a cop from Minneapolis who, makes half of what her father makes in a month." "I hate it when that happens," she replied. "I do too. She was with me for about 2 years before she finally left. Thank God there were no kids. I don't think I could do that to my own children." "Would you like to have kids someday?" Sloan nodded. "I would. A lot of them. I like that whole backyard full of kids idea, it's comforting to know that even if I screw up my own life, I can still manage to make my kids' lives better." Serena shook her finger at him. "Trust me, Sloan, you're not a screw-up." He paused to look at her. "That's the first time you've used my name." Blushing, she replied, "So it would appear." He smiled as he finished his pizza and wiped his hands. "This place looks great." Serena gazed around and stood up. "It's a huge difference, isn't it? I still have to clean up her clothes. You can head home if you want. Thank you for everything. I don't think I would have been able to finish this without you." He stood up and gave her a smile. "I'm sure you would manage, but I'm off duty tonight. I can stick around and keep you company if you don't mind." "I don't mind." Darren walked into the house and turned on the lights. He wasn't surprised to find it empty. He was sure she was out with her friends. She was constantly picking fights with him. That's how he saw it. He walked to the answer machine and saw a flashing light and pressed the button. "You have one new message," the automated voice said. "New message sent today at 8 p.m. The message beeped as Sloan's voice came on. "Hi, Serena. I realize you're probably already home, but right after you left, I realized that I left my jacket at Megan's apartment. I was wondering if you were going to go there anytime soon, and if so, would you mind picking it up for me? I'll come and get it when I can. Thanks so much, and I had fun tonight. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, and take care, Serena." The machine beeped as Darren's hand tightened around the kitchen chair. Was she sleeping with Sloan? Was that it? His message sounded so sexual and so arousing that he was ready to punch a hole in the wall. Was that for the picking fights every night? He turned around when the doorknob began to open and Serena walked in. She was wearing her blue overalls with her hair in pigtails, the innocent schoolgirl look. Before he knew it, he flew across the room and slammed the door shut. She gasped as he turned his eyes on her. "You bitch," Darren cried. Serena's eyes turned misty with tears as she stared up at him. "Darren, what is wrong with you?" He walked to her and gave her a shove, sending her items in her arms falling to the ground. "You're screwing him, aren't you? Does he make you squeal like a pig?" She gasped. "Darren, what the hell is the matter with you? What are you talking about? Are you insane?" He pointed to the phone. "I heard his message. You were out with Sloan tonight, weren't you? Did you screw him where Megan's dead body lay? Huh? Did it feel good?" Serena slapped him across the face. "You disgusting pig! You are drunk. Sloan and I did no such thing. I was cleaning up Megan's apartment, and he came to gather some more information and decided to give me a hand. You should watch your mouth. My sister is dead." Darren's lips twisted in anger as he reached over and grabbed a handful of her hair. She screamed as he slapped her across the face twice and then shoved her to the ground. His eyes were gleaming with anger as he stared at her frightful glare. His hands formed fists at his sides as he started walking toward her. "You liar. You were screwing around with him all along. I should have known the truth," he whispered as he continued walking to her. "I should have known you were just like that whore sister of yours." "What are you talking about? I wasn't doing anything with him," Serena cried. She got up and pushed him away and gathered up her things. "I'm not staying here tonight. You can just go to hell." Serena's hands shook as she dialed Sloane's number. She was sitting on the bed at the Super 8 motel. Her cheeks was blaring hot from where he had hit her. The last time she looked in the mirror, it was getting swollen and blue. She listened as the line continued to ring. "Hello," Sloane said. She let out a deep sob. "Sloane?" There was a long pause. "Serena? Is that you? What's wrong? You sound upset." She started crying as her hands shook with fear. "Darren went crazy when I got home. He said he listened to some message you left on the machine and said we were screwing around with each other. He hit me." Sloane interrupted with urgency. "Where are you?" I'm at the Super 8 motel off on County Road 81. "Hang on, I'll be right there." True to his words, Sloane arrived half an hour later, and Serena spent a few minutes in his arms crying. He pulled her away and stared at her swollen face. He gently caressed his thumb across her cheek. She looked into his eyes and saw disgust at Darren's handiwork. "God, that bastard should be killed for what he did to you," Sloane snapped. Serena pulled away from his arms, walked to the bed, and sat down. She took the cloth filled with ice and placed it next to her cheek. "He was crazy. I was so scared." He walked to sit down beside her. "What happened?" She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "I came home, and as soon as I got inside, he already shoved me. He said you left a message about us, and it just pissed him off. He accused us of sleeping together. And when I tried to explain about you helping me with Megan's apartment, he got more physical, and he just started hitting me, and I got out of there." "I did call you. You weren't home yet, so I left a message on your machine. I left my jacket at your sister's apartment. But the message wasn't anything sexual. Did you listen to it?" Shaking her head, she replied, "No, I never got the chance to." She put the cloth down and picked up her phone. She dialed a few numbers and left the phone on speaker so they could both hear. After the automated voice, Sloane's voice came on the phone. "Hi, Serena. I realize you're probably already home, but right after you left, I realized that I left my jacket at Megan's apartment. I was wondering if you were going to go there anytime soon, and if so, would you mind picking it up for me? I'll come and get it when I can. Thanks so much, and I had fun tonight. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, and take care, Serena." She turned the phone off and turned to him. I had never seen him so crazy like that. His eyes weren't even human. It was like some kind of wild animal. I've never seen him that way. I mean, he's gotten mad before, but not like that, and he's never hit me either. Sloane shook his head. "I don't have a good feeling about him. I think you should probably stay clear of him for a few days. Do you have somewhere else you can stay?" "Well, here was going to be my choice, but I do need my clothes." "I'll go with you in the morning to get them. Tonight, I'll camp here with you." "You don't have to do that." He shook his head. Not a chance. I'm not going anywhere. Sloan grunted and realized he should have left for home. The sound of Serena's breathing was sending him insane with arousal. He turned on his back and stared up at the ceiling as a clock on the wall ticked quietly. He turned his head and saw her hand dangling over the bed, and he swore underneath his breath. Why did he always make things harder for himself? He groaned softly when Serena moaned quietly on the bed. He sat up in the dark and stared at her on the bed. Her hair was across her face, and her mouth was open slightly. The blankets had been kicked off of her, and her legs were lying on top of each other. Her body was twisted in that strange, comfortable way when one was in a deep sleep. Her lashes were so long they almost touched her cheeks. The shirt she wore was unbuttoned to the third one, and when she breathed, he could almost see the swell of her breasts. He sucked in a breath as she turned, and the shirt fell open fully, revealing what he truly wanted to see. He turned away, ashamed of himself at what he was doing. The woman needed protection from her insane fiancé. She did not come here to get seduced by the cop who was supposed to protect her. Sloan sighed and hit his pillow a few times before settling down to sleep what little he could.
I shut my eyes, trying not to speak, pretend that I'm dreaming. I smell your breath, not listening, but I still hear you screaming. Going under, one step away till you hear what I'm saying. Sounds like thunder, and the clouds are closing in. You see, I know this, but the last days in real.
Serena entered the house to find it quiet. She walked in with Sloan behind her and walked up the stairs into her bedroom. The bed hadn't been slept on. She hurried to the closet and gathered up some clothes and shoes, and when she turned and walked down the stairs, the front door opened and Darren walked in with a surprised look on his face. Sloan appeared behind her as Darren made his way in. "So, my assumption was right," Darren said. Serena shook her head. "I was too scared to come here alone after what you did to me, Darren. I had to get Sloan to come in with me." "You're a coward, hitting her like that," Sloan snapped. Darren turned his eyes on him. "Who are you calling a coward? You're the one sleeping with another man's fiancé." "You're wrong about that, pal. There is nothing going on between Serena and me. Our relationship has been purely professional." "Yeah, you got that right. Purely fucking professional," Darren mocked. "Shut up, Darren. I'm leaving. And oh, the wedding will be postponed for another 6 months. I'm rethinking if I really want to be married to you or not," she said as she walked out the door. Sloan was sitting at his desk drinking a cup of coffee when Gary walked in with a happy smile on his face. He set his coffee aside as his partner took a seat. "What's with the Mr. Rogers smile?" Gary pointed a finger at him. "Hey, Mr. Rogers was a great neighbor. You shouldn't make fun of him." "Oh, sorry, soft spot. I forgot you find him likable." Sloan laughed as his partner's face twisted in agony. "You know, I'll let that slide this time." "Ooh," Sloan said with a fake petrified look. "I just got off the phone with Megan's bank. Apparently, every month, someone would deposit $3,000 into her account on the 1st. The deposit was always marked as a bank from Switzerland under the name of Ricardo. Since Megan passed, the deposits have stopped. The bank found out about Megan's passing a few days ago and had been trying to reach Serena unsuccessfully." "Well, that would be right because she's camped up in a motel hiding from her crazy, insane fiancé." Gary stopped and looked at Sloan long and hard. "Is there something going on between you and her that I need to know about?" Laughing, Sloan asked, "Are you nuts?" "No." "How did you know where she was?" "She called me." "Ah," Gary interrupted. "I was right. You like her, don't you? You've given her the impression that if anything goes wrong, and by that I mean anything, she could call you. So her fiancé slaps her up a bit, and she does call you. Nice work, pal." Sloan stuck up his middle finger at Gary. "Fuck you, Gary." Gary laughed as he stood up and bowed. "You can never go past me with anything." Serena sat across from Sloan and Gary in Sloan's office wearing a pink shirt with a pair of black trousers. Her right cheek was covered thanks to makeup. She stared from one to the other as she sat uncomfortably. "What is it that you wanted to talk to me about, detectives?" Serena asked. Gary pushed forward some papers. "These are documents from Megan's bank account. A $3,000 deposit was made to your sister's account on the first of every month. It was made from a bank in Switzerland under the name Ricardo. Do you have any idea who this man could be?" Serena stared at the papers in front of her and frowned. This is so strange. She was between jobs because she couldn't pay her rent. How was it that she was getting all of this money? And Ricardo? I have no idea who that man is or that she was even seeing anybody whose name is like that. She looked up at them and pushed the papers back. "Besides working at the strip club, where else was she working?" Gary asked. Thinking hard, Serena said with deep disappointment, "I don't know. Like I said, we weren't that close. I knew she worked as a stripper, but beyond that, I'm not entirely sure. She did mention about working as a waitress at a part-time bar somewhere downtown, but I don't even know which one." Sloan rubbed his eyes. "Serena, Miss Fuller, is there any reason not to suspect Darren?" Serena pondered his question for a moment. "No, why?" Gary turned to find Sloan quiet, so he filled in. "I've gone over a lot of the statements given to us. When we asked Darren about Megan, he told us that she thought of him as a rich bastard banging her sister." "I know, I was there." "Right. So is there any reason to suspect Darren of hiding anything from you?" Gary asked. Serena sighed and leaned back in her chair. "I'm not sure, but I think I would have noticed if he was hiding something. I'll double check Megan's things again. I'm sure I'll find a loophole somewhere." The suitcase was lying on the bed when Serena got home, the suitcase that contained Megan's things. She had asked a receptionist to deliver it to the house. She had given Gladys the keys to let herself in. Darren's car was gone, so she felt safer as she stared at the suitcase that seemed to taunt her. She walked over and sat down on the bed. With shaking hands, she reached over and opened it up. Inside contained a few shirts and pictures. Serena stared at the pictures of Megan and her friends at the club dressed as nurses. She smiled as she set them aside, and then her fingers brushed past an envelope. Frowning, she took it out and opened it. Her eyes scanned the black writing and her sister's writing as her heart sank at the words before her. "Dearest Darren, this is a goodbye letter. I just can't do this anymore. Years of lying to Serena are eating me alive. I've had to wake up every day of my life, and when I look in the mirror, I don't like who I see anymore. So I'm writing this letter as a goodbye for all the good times we've shared and all the times we'll never share again together. I don't want to hurt Serena. She's a good person, unlike me. Please don't tell her anything about us. This secret is to die with us. She doesn't need to know the truth about you and me. She'll never understand why we did the things we did. She's not me. You and I are creatures molded from the same fabric, and so we can live with this kind of lie, but she can't. Besides, I am ending this so that you can be free to be with her. When I see her with you, you are so happy, and it makes me think that you do deserve her. You are a wonderful man, Darren. Thank you so much for everything you've done for me. I can't begin to put into words what I would do if it wasn't for you. I will love you forever and always. Oh, and by the way, did you like my striptease dance at your engagement party? I did it for you. I was beyond jealous when I arrived, and I didn't want to do it, but I was so angry. If I hadn't done that, I would have done something else. Please forgive me. But it was because of you, and I did it for you. You will never get to see my body after you are married, so consider this your bachelor party. I love you, Megan." The letter dropped from Serena's hands as tears filled her eyes. The pain inside her heart throbbed as she fell to the ground sobbing. Her sister and Darren were hiding a love affair. She glanced at the note and saw the date. It was written 2 weeks before Megan's death. She covered her face with her hands as she sobbed, but her head shot up as she heard the sound of the door opening and Darren calling out her name. She picked up the note, placed it back into the suitcase, and closed it. And then she took it and walked on the stairs to find Darren standing in the kitchen holding a bottle of beer. He was standing there, so cool, so calm, as if he was so innocent. "You're home. I wanted to talk to you about what happened," Darren said as he set his bottle of beer down on the table. Serena held tightly to the suitcase and raised up her head. "How long were you screwing my sister?" Darren's face paled as he laughed. "What?" "You know damn well what I'm talking about, you asshole. I read the letter she wrote to you. How she wanted to end it because she couldn't stand to look at herself any longer. How the striptease was for you. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Serena yelled. Darren looked away as he came to sit down. He remained silent for a few moments before he turned to look at her. "How did you figure it out?" "I read the letter she wrote to you." "Oh, God, Serena, I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I wanted to end it so many times because I couldn't stand to look at myself. I was so upset with everything, and when you were busy with your job, she was there to listen to me. I don't know why I did what I did." "Did you send her the $3,000 every month?" He frowned. "What? No. I was going to end the relationship with her. I went to her apartment, and she handed me a letter. I read it, and I agreed with her. I'd left that letter with her, and I didn't think that she would still keep it." Serena shook her head as tears filled her eyes. "Did you kill her?" Darren stood up, upset. "That is out of line. You hit me. You're capable of killing her." "Stop it," he cried. "You weren't supposed to be spending time with Sloan. I was here for you, and you turned to him. You made me do it. I'm sorry for hitting you. I am. I just got so jealous when I heard that message on the phone. It just drove me mad with insanity. I never meant to hurt you. I'm sorry, Serena." She wiped her eyes. "I'm leaving. I'll have Gladys come take my things in a few days. I can't stand it anymore, Darren. The lies and the hurt I could stand, but the whole story of you and Megan together just can't be erased from my mind. I'm sorry, but I can't do it." She turned and left. Sloan read the letter Megan had written and then set it aside when he finished. He stared up at Serena, who sat on the bed in her motel room. She looked so sad and exhausted he wanted to hold her. He ran a hand through his hair. "Wow, that's all I can say," Sloan said. "I know. He claimed that I was busy, and that was why he turned to her. I asked him if he killed her." "What did he say?" Looking up, she replied, "He said no." Nodding, Sloan said, "I think I'll go and have a talk with him. This gives me another twist on the case now. Are you okay?" She shook her head, shrugged, and then wiped her teary eyes. "I'm so tired from all of this anger. I just want to feel sane again. My pitch has been moved up next week, and I'm just strolling here in the dark. I'm stressed out, I'm tired, and I'm just hopelessly angry at everyone. I just want to feel okay again." Sloan got up and walked to her. He tilted her chin up. "Serena, you will be fine again. I promise you." Her eyes looked foggy as she looked up at him. And then he leaned down and pressed his lips against hers. At first, she jerked back in surprise, but then she leaned in toward his kiss, and that drove him wild, and he pulled her to stand up. His hands began pulling at her clothes, discarding everything until they were together without anything between them. And the unthinkable happened. The pleasures that he had been dreaming about surfaced between the two of them. "I hope you don't think I do this all the time," Serena said a moment later. They were lying side by side in the bed. The fan had been turned on to cool off their body heat. Smiling, he replied, "Of course I don't. I hope you won't let this get weird between us." She looked up at him and smiled. "Never." He kissed the top of her head, and his hand came down to caress her shoulder. "Tell me the truth. Do you think Darren could have killed Megan?" Serena didn't answer at first. It took her a moment, and then she replied, "I don't know." Sloan pushed himself up and stared down at her. "I don't like the idea of him being able to find you. I don't want you to get hurt. I think he might be hiding another side of him that you've never seen before. I just don't want anything bad to happen. My cop instincts are telling me he's a very dangerous man. Nodding, she replied, I promise I won't do anything stupid without asking you first. Darren sat in the chair across from the detectives as they both stared at him. They had called early this morning asking him to come down to the station for some questions. He knew what they wanted to know. As soon as Serena left, she would have gone straight to SLOAN and told them everything. He was expecting their call. So, Darren, why didn't you tell us before that you were sleeping with Megan? Gary asked. Darren laughed and leaned back in his chair. Are you kidding me? I was sleeping with her sister, and I was engaged to her. Her sister was murdered. Why would I tell her that at that point? According to the letter Megan wrote to you, she asked you not to tell Serena. Is that right? Sloan asked. Darren turned his eyes to him. That's right. So correct me if I'm wrong, but unless Serena found that in the suitcase, she would have never known. You can put it that way. Why were you screwing her sister? Was Serena not a good lay in bed? Gary asked. Darren shrugged and kept his eyes on Sloan. She was a good broad, but she was working all the time. A man has needs that has to be filled. I needed someone, and Megan happened to be there. Besides, Megan was a call girl. She had more experience in bed. So that's why you were screwing her? Gary inquired. More or less, Darren whispered. Gary leaned back on his elbows. What were you doing on the night she was murdered? Am I a suspect, detective? I'm trying to eliminate you as one. Where were you? I was in bed, sleeping. She was taking a shower when we got the call that Megan was killed. Sloan got up and walked to the far corner and then turned back around. Are you the father of Megan's baby? No. Are you sure? Darren crossed his arms. Yes. Sloan cleared his throat. Do you mind if we swabbed you for DNA? Yes, I fucking mind. This conversation is over. You want to talk? You can call my lawyer. Darren got up and walked through the doors as they followed him out. Mr. Washburn, don't make this harder than it is, Sloan called out. Fuck you both, Darren cried as he left the building. Serena stared at her computer and took a deep breath. Her pitch was in 15 minutes, and she was shaking as she stared at the time. She pushed her strands back and took a deep breath. Gathering up her things, she started down the hall to where the conference room was. Today, the editor-in-chief for Pose magazine was here to deliver their pitch to the president of Women's Magazine. Serena had to win this pitch. She deserved it. Serena opened the door to the conference room, and her eyes fell on Victoria Banker, the editor-in-chief of Pose magazine, a vicious woman. Victoria smiled at her in a way that you knew was forced, and Serena returned the same back. Her teammates poured in after a while, and then the president of Women's Magazine, Ira Thorne, walked in wearing his pinstripe suit. He was a tall man with white hair and dark blue eyes. He became an icon when his magazine sold more than 10 million copies a year, and he was also the first gay magazine president ever. He alone could make a room cry. As Ira sat down, Thomas walked to the front of the room and smiled. Welcome to Sharp Magazine, where we target today's woman. I'm so glad that we can all gather up today to make the pitch of the year. And now I would like to bring up a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Ira Thorne. Everyone applauded as Thomas sat down and Ira stood up. He smiled at everyone as he cleared his throat and laced his hands together. Thank you for letting me come here today to witness this miracle. Having Sharp Magazine and Pose Magazine in one room is rare. Everyone laughed. I've been with Women's Magazine for 3 decades, and we've been the best-selling magazine in the world, no offense to anyone. I've been planning a merger, and I would like to have some decisions on which one I should choose. Both magazines have been given the same topic, and I've given you 2 months to prepare the pitch. However, since I'm not the one to do it, I'll let Pose Magazine come first, due to the fact that their letter comes first in the alphabet. Why don't you take it away, Victoria? He smiled once and walked to sit down. Victoria and her group walked to the front of the room and began putting on some boards. A few of them were pictures of a couple in bed, their legs wrapped around each other. The others were pictures of a couple dancing together. Victoria, known to be of the Southern comfort beauty, turned to the front as her teammates went to sit down. Thank you, Mr. Banker, for allowing us this opportunity. I'm thankful to be here today. She stopped and cleared her throat. Well, as you know, relationships have been the number one reason why we have had reality TV show these days. They are the reason why cable sells so well. What is it about a man and a woman? It is the cold and hot relationship between all of them. Women are like rare gems. They're hard to find and they're even harder to tame. They are the soul of men. Without women, men fade and wither away. Serena turned to find Ira sitting uncomfortably in his chair. Obviously, Victoria's words about how a man needed a woman bothered him. Our readers should read about the deepness of every marriage and every relationship. What makes it work and what makes it fail. I think magazines these days spend too much time dwelling on the small factors and they forget the truth in everything. What about the truth in love? Where has that gone? If we could bring all of that back, we can make this world a better place. Thank you, Victoria ended. Everyone applauded lightly as her teammates came to clean up the board. Serena cleared her throat and nodded for her teammates to go ahead and start setting up. The presentation contained 3 boards, one of a woman looking off into space as the man caressed her shoulder, one of a couple riding in a boat, their image mirrored on the lake, and the last one contained a picture of a family. Serena smiled as her team went back to sit down. First of all, I would like to thank my team for doing such a wonderful job. Second, I would like to thank Mr. Banker for letting us share this moment with you. She smiled as she turned to look at the pictures on the boards and then back at the people sitting in front of her. The dictionary defines relationship as a connection by blood or family. I also think that it means a connection between a man and a woman. These days, relationships are taken for granted. You see a couple walking down the park, side by side, but their hands are not clasped. You think to yourself, why? You see a mother and a daughter reading a book together and you wonder, how beautiful. You see a father teaching his son to ride a bicycle for the first time and you think, how touching. Relationships are formed from the moment a baby takes its first breath to the day we close our eyes and sleep forever in peace. And today, relationships are not based on what was foretold ages ago. The world is beginning to change, and we should all evolve with that too. The coming of different races, the different morals, and the differences in sexuality is proven to be a better world if we accept it. She saw a hint of happiness in Ira's eyes as she said that. Serena smiled and continued. I think with this merger, we shouldn't do what we've done in the past. We shouldn't put someone's face on the cover and try to sell it. We should put a person we know on the cover and make it a best-selling magazine because that person tells us a story that we can learn from it. That's who we are at Sharp Magazine, and I hope that we can be the same with Woman's Magazine. Thank you. Ira stood up and clapped as Serena walked to sit down. He smiled and pointed a finger at her, shaking his head while his lips were turning upward in a smile. Sloan was waiting for Serena as she pulled up her car at the motel. He walked to her and noticed that her face was full of happiness. He smiled as he leaned down and gave her a light kiss. What's the news? You look so happy. Serena got out of the car and shut the door. I made the sales pitch, and the president of Women's Magazine merged with us. Oh my God, that's awesome. Congratulations. Thank you. So, what's going on? Sloan's smile faded. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Darren came down today to answer a few questions. He's getting a lawyer because we asked for DNA. Why were you asking for that? We needed to test if he was the father of the baby. Serena's face paled. Oh my gosh, I had forgotten about that. What did he say when you asked him? He claims he's not the father of her child, but right now he could be lying. I have to ask you, was he with you the night Megan was murdered? Serena thought long and hard. I came home around 6 and he was sleeping in bed. I went to shower and then he must have gotten a phone call or something. The next thing I knew, he came to tell me and said that she was murdered and we had to leave. Did you hear the phone ring? No. Did anyone from your office call the house? Sloan sighed and tear rushed through his body. The thing is, I had an officer on scene call you because you were listed as her sister. But the officer on scene said no one picked up. It was around 6. I had him call again at 6:30. When we got no answer from your house, we assumed you were out of town. But then you showed up suddenly, and I thought maybe someone had been able to reach you. Serena's face paled as she reached with a shaking hand to hold on to him. So he knew the truth already. He had to be the one who killed her. How else would he know? Let's not jump to conclusions. I'll check more out. For the time being, don't go anywhere alone or without me. Thank you for tuning in. Chapter 4 will be out shortly.
I don't want nobody stabbing me with love. Don't wanna waste no time getting my feelings hurt. I believe in those things we don't know much of. There's just so much to see that ain't about love. I'm ready to face my fears. I'm ready to taste the weird. I just wanna walk the hills above. My ordinary life, I could let it burn. 'Cause I just wanna go to the deep.